Welcome back to part 4 of Making Sunset Rider. I'm Jackie, and today we're going to work on the horse figure and more of the waves. Now, I have blocked in the horse and the person, but it's literally all I've done is take some dark brown and block in the horse shape. I took some red to block in the shirt and some grey to block in the trousers. So I've not actually done anything to the horse otherwise. The first thing I'm doing here is making some shadow under the saddle, and I'm also going to try and put in the definition of the blanket that would be under the saddle itself. So that's what these colours are. I'm just basically blocking in the shape of the blanket and the saddle. If you look in the background to the waves, the only things I've done extra in between videos on the waves is to add a little bit more of the blue lines. Now my hand's gone. You can see the blue line coming up at the front of the waves. And I don't think I did anything else. Oh, yes, I did. Telling fibs. The bunched up bits you can see around the horse, that would be the surf, the orange and white bits. And literally all I've done for that is to get some white wool and some of the yellow that we use anyway, and just kind of scrunch it together, mix it up a bit, but not too much. And I've just literally almost rolled it into balls and put it along the front. This will get done over and added to and things. So there's no technique really in doing that front bit. The only reason I've done that is because I wanted to block the horse in, but I really didn't want to have to faff doing the surf around the horse's legs. So I put the surf in the background first, and then I blocked the horse in. Makes it much easier to do. Here I'm adding some highlights to the horse's rear end. It's really just a very, very faint amount of the orangey colour that we had, very thin, and it's just spread out over it where the sunlight would be catching the back of the horse, because we don't want the horse to look like they're just a black hole on the page. I'm now using some of the merino tops to make the horse's tail. This works really well because of the strands of the merino is quite long, and I can literally put the tail on and brush it into place, and it doesn't look disjointed or anything because of the continuation of the lines. I use the needle itself to spread it out, like it's almost like brushing it into place. As long as you're gentle, you shouldn't break the tip of your needle. The part I'm doing here is adding a fine orange line around the front of the horse's face because I want it to be defined by the sunlight that would be hitting it. I need to make the line as fine as I can without it disappearing. Here I'm starting to add some darker shadows to where the sun wouldn't hit the horse, because I'm trying to make the horse look a little bit more 3D. This isn't something you want to rush. Just take your time, and as I've said in many of the other videos, get yourself a reference picture of a horse and have a look where the light catches it and where it doesn't, and it'll make it much easier for you. I'm now starting to put the mane on, and all I've done is use some more of the merino that I had for the tail, and I'm just pumping it on the edge of the neck. Don't forget the little bit that would come out between his ears onto his forehead. I'm adding some darker streaks to the top of the tail here as well, because obviously that would be a bit darker than the ends. As the horse really is the focal point of the picture, you don't want to rush this. It doesn't really matter how long it takes you, just do your best to get it looking a little more 3D and not too flat. Now here you can see me starting to make some more of the surf, so you can see the technique I use. It's just rip it into bits and then scruff it up a bit and plonk it where you want it. There's nothing too technical in that one. Just don't felt it down into a tight little ball, because what we're aiming for being surf is to keep it fluffy looking. I mean, you need to felt it down, but keep it spread out a bit. I'm still not using big bits of the felt. I'm just using small bits and really just scoofing them into a light ball, because I don't want a dense, thick thing here. And this is the joy of needle felting. I decided the tail was too long, so I just ripped a bit off and then cut it shorter. Nice and simple. Having looked at the picture, I decided that the saddle itself needed a bit more definition, so I went in with some dark, really, really dark brown and just almost used it as an outline. Oh, and his foot. I forgot his foot as well. I'm now adding a bit of dark shadow behind his leg, because obviously once again the sunlight wouldn't get it and it needed a bit more definition. This is the point where I've mixed some of the red I use for his shirt with some dark brown, just to make the back of the shirt a little darker. I've tried to keep the edges lighter because again that's where the light would be. I'm working a lot on keeping the lines defined by going around the edges and scooping the line of the horse back into place because as you needle felt sometimes it kind of stretches things out of place. I'm still working on the saddle. I'm now adding highlights and shadows again. I just need to get it so you can actually see that it's a saddle. So here comes the beach. We're really getting near to the end of it now. I'm just going to lay a completely brown, sandy sort of coloured wool layer all across the beach. Filling in this area really does start to bring the picture together now. Again, this is just the base layer and I'll probably cover most of this back up again in a minute. Now I'm going over it with some darker brown, but very, very thinly laid as usual, so that you can still see the sandy colour from below. When I began the beach, I thought I'd have it as a slope down to the shore, but as you'll see as we go along, gradually it gets flatter and flatter, which I actually prefer in the end. That's the thing with a picture, really. You need to keep it fluid because it can change as you go along, and you need to be prepared to change with it. Nothing should be fixed in stone unless you're doing a portrait of something. You can find it restricting, and you can really lose the fun of the painting if you keep so rigidly to something. What I'm doing here now is adding some shadow under the surf. Again, this is just the base layer and will change. And all I'm using is the blue and the white that I'd used earlier on the waves and things. Just pale, but dark enough to make a difference. I'm going along under the edge of that dark shadow with a little bit of darker blue just to give a defining line between the water's edge and the sand. You need to keep it subtle though because you don't want it to look like you went along it with a Sharpie. With the beach, I'm just alternating layers of dark and light, working out where the sun would hit the beach, hit the water that's going to be on the beach. Just keep layering the dark colours and the light colours. You can't really go wrong too much, but again, if you need a reference picture, don't be afraid to use one. And use the merino wool's ability to go into shapes and lines that you can curve where you want. That's really helpful as well. Here, I'm really thinking about how the waves would come in and go out, where they would leave their water line behind. It would leave shadows and watery marks. So I'm trying to picture in my head how far the wave would come in and where it would go out, and that would make the sand darker. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I look forward to seeing you in the last video next week where we finish off the sand and any other little bits that need doing. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye.